One of the biggest mistakes that brands do is they think that repetition is actually boring. Here's the truth. Repetition, well, it may feel repetitive. It's supposed to. You live with your brand and you feel that it's boring because you see it every single day. You see your own commercials, you hear your own radio spots, you approve your own social media posts, you're reviewing your graphics, and you stare at your logo constantly. But to the consumer, well, they're just beginning to notice you. That's one of the most important lessons in branding and advertising. In a consumer's world, it can be a noisy place. They're bombarded with thousands of messages every day. Social media scrolling, television streaming, outdoor boards, emails, text messages, podcasts, influencer videos, notifications, ads coming from every direction. Well, your message is competing against all of that. So when businesses panic and say, "We've run this commercial too long. People are tired of hearing this. We need to change everything." Stop. Most of the time, the audience is only beginning to recognize your brand because repetition is trust. Confidence takes repetition. Recognition takes repetition. Trust takes repetition. The biggest brands in the world understand this. Think about McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Toyota, Nike, State Farm. All these brands, well, they repeat their message constantly. Their logos stay recognizable. Their colors are consistent. Their tags stay familiar. They sound familiar. Their tone is familiar. Why is that? Because repetition creates stability. And stability creates trust. And you know what I say. Well, trust, it builds your brand. Consumers are naturally more comfortable with brands they recognize. Of course they are. Familiarity lowers risk in the consumer's mind. People think, "I've heard them before. I see them everywhere. They must be successful and reliable." That comfort matters, especially in industries where trust is critical. Automotive, healthcare, financial services. Think about it. Brands that remain visible feel safe and strong than those brands that go dark. And this becomes even more important during difficult economic times. You see, when budgets get tight, many companies decide to cut the advertising. They go dark. They reduce their visibility. They stop reinforcing their message. But going dark, going quiet, well, that creates instability. If consumers stop hearing from you, well, they begin wondering, are they still there? Are they still open? Visibility matters. Now, does that mean you run your exact creative forever? No, of course not. You can refresh creative, update your visuals, modernize production, and of course, create seasonal campaigns and promotions. But the core brand identity should remain recognizable and consistent because your positioning should remain stable. Your tone should always remain familiar. And your message, well, that should reinforce what you stand for. Consistency builds memory structures in the brain. That's why jingles work. That's why we remember them when we sing them. That's why sponsorships work. That's why consistent TV schedules work. And it's why frequency matters in media buying. One commercial rarely changes behavior, but repeated exposures and frequency over time, well, that creates awareness, recognition, comfort, and conversion. This is something I've seen throughout my career in media strategy. The brands that stay disciplined usually win long term. Not necessarily the loudest brands, not necessarily the largest or the flashiest brands. The most consistent brands win. They win every time. I've worked with advertisers who stayed visible through economic downturns, political seasons, inventory shortages, market disruptions, and what happened? When conditions improved, their brand remained strong because consumers never forgot them. Meanwhile, the competitors who went dark, well, they have to start all over again and rebuild awareness. And that's expensive. It costs more to rebuild your brand than it did to stay consistent. Because branding is cumulative. It builds upon itself. Every impression matters. Every sponsorship matters. Every consistent message matters. Because you're building familiarity over time. Brand equity, I call it. And one reason repetition feels uncomfortable internally is because business owners and marketing teams, they see the message far more often than the consumer actually sees it. You've probably heard the phrase, "We're sick of that commercial," but consumers may have only seen it once or twice, or maybe not at all. That's why marketers have to stop judging campaigns based on internal fatigue. Your audience experiences your brand very differently than you do. Consumers are busy. They miss commercials. They scroll past content. They're multitasking. They leave the room. They fast forward. They get distracted. We've all done it. I've done it. This means repetition isn't overkill. It's reinforcement. Reinforcement builds stronger brands. This is why I say strong media strategy focuses on consistency and random bursts of activity. You see, a steady strategic presence is usually more effective than constantly stopping and starting. It's more cost efficient also. Consistency creates familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort creates trust. And trust, well, you know it. Trust builds your brand. That's why I always say repetition is reassurance. Repetition's not boring. It's not lazy. It's not outdated. Reassurance. Consumers want stability. They want confidence. They want familiarity in an uncertain world. Strong brands provide that emotional comfort. So if you're building a brand right now, remember this. Don't confuse consistency with the lack of creativity, because the goal of branding is not to constantly reinvent yourself. The goal is to actually become recognizable, more memorable, more trusted. Because the brands people remember are usually the brands they saw consistently over time. So remember, repetition is not boring. Repetition is stability. This is Holly Andrews. Remember, always stay true to your brand. Now be sure you subscribe to my channel for more stories and strategies behind the media buy.